Okay, Judy. Hello. I'm going to bring it back down so you can see my hands, but we're going to do 3 riffs here, okay? 3 riffs. I'm going to send it to you in a PDF. One we're going to call the major-minor riff. It should be called minor-major because it's going from minor to major. But anyway, in G, that will look like this. This is the one we first learned. So third finger's on the root, and the first finger plays the minor, slides up to the major note, second finger plays the root again. Okay? Rhythmically, we're talking about 1, 2, and 3, 4. That's what we're doing, okay? That's one riff, number 1. Riff number 2, we're going to play the root, and then play the octave, and then the flat 7 behind it. So in G, that'll be first finger on the root, then play up 2 strings, up 2 frets, play the root octave, sorry, and then come back to the flat 7. That's riff number 2. Rhythmically, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Riff number 3 will be, just down here. You're playing third finger on the root G, and then first finger plays the F, which is a whole step behind, and then back up to the root G again. So that'll be 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so rhythmically, riff number 2 and riff number 3 are the same. When we put these in order, though, with what I've given you here, let's see. So we're going to play in the key of G. When I say riff 1 followed by riff number 2 on that first line, we're just put those two together to sound like this. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's riff number 1 followed by riff number 2. Okay? And then if you put those back to back, that makes up one whole line on when you're over the 1 chord. So in the first one, you'd be going again. Okay? That makes up that first line. Okay? The second line switches to the 4 chord, and you would play 1 and 2 starting on the root C. Okay? And that makes up the first half of the second line. Then we go back to the root 1 again. And that gets you through the first and second line there on the first, what are we saying? 12-bar blues. So first line, second line. So I'm just giving you, each measure is telling you which riff to play. Okay, and it's all relative to when the chord changes. So if you're playing over a G chord, you start on the root G. If you're playing over the 4 chord, you're playing over the root C. Sorry. All right, now the third line is where it gets a little different. You can pick whatever you want, okay, to play over the 5 chord and the 4 chord, but I want them to be the same. Okay, so you can play this. I guess you can play it 3 times in a row if you wanted, and use riff 1 for the 5 and 4 chord, and then riff 2 for the 5 and 4 chord, and then riff 3. So when you get to that third line, you're playing over the 5 chord. You could play this riff 1, 5 chord, followed by the 4 chord, and that's what you're playing as riff 1 on both of those. And then you'd go back to riff 1 and 2 again on G. Okay? And if you were to play riff 2 for the 5 chord and the 4 chord, you'd have, and then finish up with the 1 and 2 over the 1 chord. And if you were to play riff 3 for the 5 and the 4 chord, you would have, what do we have here? Okay? And that is how you would do that. So why don't I go ahead and play all the way through, you know what, I'll put that on maybe a jam track in a second. But that's how you would do the first half. I'm giving you a page, and the first half of the page is 12-bar blues using riff 1 and 2 together. The next one uses riff 1 and 3 together. So instead of playing the octave, you'd play riff 1 again, and instead of going, you're going to just play the riff G, so root G, a whole step behind it, and back up. So that's riff 3. So together, on that second half of the page, you would play riff 1 and 3 together like this. Okay, one more time. And then when you play that thing all the way through, you'd play it over the 1 chord, just like I did. Again. Then it switched to the 4 chord, riff 1 and 3. And then back to the 1 chord. Same thing, on 5 and 4 chord, you can play riff 1, riff 2, or riff 3. Just keep them the same. If you play 1 on 5 chord, play 1 on the 4 chord too. Meaning, if you play the 1 chord now over the 5 chord, it would sound like this. Then the 4 chord. And then you'd go back to the ending there on the 1 chord, riff 1, and then riff 3. If you were to play riff 2 on 5 and 4 chord in that last line, it would sound like this. And then riff 3 would sound like this. And then the last riff again. So to me, you can basically look at this as 12-bar blues. You'd play it in the key of G and the key of A if you wanted to. Get through the key of G first, get used to it. But you can make lots of variations here. So the first half of the page is playing off of riff 1 and 2 together. And the second half of the page is playing off of riff 1 and 3 together, which I think is kind of neat. I guess potentially you could put 2 and 3 together. It just wouldn't sound as cool, I don't think. 2 and 3. It's just not as cool. So for right now, we're kind of limited, but I think that's okay. So you're putting together riff 1 and 2, riff 1 and 3, and the variations you can do over top of the 5 and the 4 chord, just have fun with it. And if you want to just go in order, I'd maybe do the whole thing 3 times, and then switch them out each time with riff 1 over the 5 and 4, riff 2 over the 5 and 4, and then riff 3 over the 5 and 4. And hopefully that all makes sense. And then once it feels good, just move it on up to the key of A. Okay? That is pretty much it. I'm going to try and do a couple where I'm actually playing along with the jam track and see if that'll help you out a little bit. Okay? Goodbye.